Mr. Choksey, thank you very much for joining us on Republic. Happy New Year to you. And my first question is that we're entering 2026 on a note where we are seeing the markets falling day after day. Uh, what is your first take on why are the markets falling, sir?
Wish you happy 2026 as well. Well, I think the market is largely falling because of two reasons. One, the foreign investors have been pulling out money, which are leverage funds, which they had deployed, largely because of the fact that I think the currency dollar, I think, is probably, I think, threatening to go down, but it is not going down. Vis-a-vis that, the currency rupee has gone down significantly. So, in order to mitigate the repayment, as far as I think the leverage position is concerned, they are selling the rupee assets, taking it back into dollar and paying back their dollar leverages. That is the simplest possible understanding that one can provide. Second most important reason is domestic driven, because in 2025 many companies came up with IPOs, and including fund investors, most of the investors have been flipping the IPOs on listing, and they have been making in the first half of 25 they have made some significant or handsome amount of return from those IPOs. But then the situation turned other way around,
Mm-hmm.
and in second half and the particularly post September, the IPOs, I think, were struggling. They were not fetching the kind of price, and at the same time, most of the companies, I think, which came up with IPO, I think they started going below the price. As a result, or as a consequence of this particular situation, the investors, including the fund investors, they started putting pedal onto they put the foot onto the pedal, in a sense that I think they started selling off the IPO stocks from the market. That also brought down, I think, significantly large amount of, I think, valuations for any of the IPO companies, and that's where you see that I think the market has continued sell off, because on one side they're incurring, I think, mark to market losses in their fund. On the other side, in order to pay off this kind of losses and build a position in the same stock by infusing further liquidity at lower price, I think they're selling off. So I think both these factors are equally responsible. Both of them are technical in nature. Market is fundamentally absolutely very, very strong and resilient. In my viewpoint, third quarter results, I think, which have started coming out, I think they would validate this viewpoint that the results of the company are going to be absolutely smart and fantastic. I think market technicals remain weak, and that's the reason for the fall as well.
Wonderful. We have the budget coming up, sir. The RBI, in fact, did a lot of things to infuse liquidity. What are your expectations from the Union Budget 2026, sir?
So the Union Budget 2026 comes with the different priorities. I think India has been signing various free trade agreements with the global nations. And at the same time, I think we are on the verge of concluding our bilateral trade agreement with America as well. This budget will have to factor in the kind of provisions pertaining to the incentives to be given to the companies which are basically going to be participating into this process of exporting the goods and services, I think, through this free trade agreement or bilateral trade agreement. And that's where probably I think we are going to see allocation of money going towards this particular area in a very systematic manner. Along with that, I think the incentives will also be further continued for some of the new generation of industries, including semiconductor, including data centers, including the industries which are basically involved in producing the clean energy, the green energy, which is green hydrogen process, among others. So, in my viewpoint, I think government will significantly expand the activity in the area of building the new energy platforms for the country. Last year, they came up with a small nuclear power plant proposal. This year, I think they're likely to give further PLI-based incentives to many of the companies, including, I think, for the green hydrogen, etc. So, I think the electricity cost is being contemplated to be brought down from current 8 to 10 rupees per unit to somewhere around 5 to 6 rupees per unit in next 5 years' time. And that's where India becomes, or India deserves to be, I think, the most competitive nation in the world as far as I think their output, manufacturing output is concerned. So these are some of the things which likely to bring the government into action for giving the incentive or thrust to the economy from a perspective of long-term horizon.
Okay. So there has been a viewpoint that the Trump's tariffs, in fact, that have have been have probably been a disguise, a blessing in disguise, so to say, because it has in a way prompted the government to take some measures such as GST reforms, tax reforms, which happened last budget. But overall liquidity situation in the country, the government has taken a number of steps to improve the liquidity situation. Do you think India in some way is decoupled from what is happening in the global markets? I mean, in a way, can we say that Indian markets are decoupled right now from the US markets?
Not really. I would not call it decoupled because I think we cannot remain decoupled either. But for the point which I explained earlier, that people had to take the money out of rupee assets and put back into dollar because of the leverage positions. So decoupling is ruled out. However, I think the other part of the story remains absolutely very strong and convincing. Okay, if the Venezuela related episode has to play out, if Iran related episode has to be played out, in my viewpoint, I think the crude oil prices coming down to $50 to a barrel, and I think for companies like Reliance who can process some of the heaviest, most crude, which comes out from Venezuela kind of country, I think they will have a shot in arm in this kind of a situation. Because on one side, I think they would get a cheaper price crude. On the other side, I think it would not be a sanctioned crude. So as a result of which, I think all the refining products, I think which India sells to other parts of the world, they would probably, I think, enjoy the margin as well, higher margin as well. So in my viewpoint, I think the energy cost coming down is a very good omen. Also because of the fact that I think it will also help in commodity companies bringing up, I think, higher amount of profit performance apart from other companies. So we remain distinctly positive about the prospects going forward for various companies and sectors in India. However, I think we would not call it as a decoupling process. We may probably end up saying that India is gradually moving in the direction of de-dollarization, if not, I think, the de-globalization.
Okay. Going forward, if we really have to look at some of the sectors, I mean, keeping in mind the current geopolitical situation, the tariffs, as well as what we are expecting in the budget. So, what are some of the sectors that you are bullish on? What are some of the sectors that you are completely hopeful about that they will take India's next run over the next about 5 years, 6 years?
Absolutely. In my viewpoint, I think the energy and energy power and power utility is going to be one beneficiary of the entire move that the government is contemplating. Second beneficiary would be the businesses which are connected to building of the data centers. In fact, I think to build one data center, that will you probably, I think, converge more than 150 different industries into it because the infrastructure is required to be developed alongside. So data center would be, I think, another area where from all of the power utilities, where we are likely to see higher amount of actions going forward in next 5 years or so. Along with that, I think we already triggered moves like I think semiconductors. They are going to be further expanded into. So we would keep an eye on, I think, whatever the policy related announcement coming up or allocation related announcement coming up in this side. We would remain distinctly positive about the consumption space. And that's where probably along with the products, we also would look at systematically companies which are in NBFC and the corporate financing space, where probably I think the retail lending is definitely going to play out well for them. So yes, I think we would have the directionally some of these sectors chosen, but individually, I think our approach would be to select the companies which are catering to these sectors. That is what I think we would like to summarize.
Okay, okay. Do you think India in some way missed the AI bus, sir, or is there a way to catch that further?
India is known for, I think, making the best out of the available opportunity. I think we have never missed this bus. In fact, I think if America today is building the AI infrastructure, India is basically providing the market for that infrastructure. Let's accept that fact. Even companies like ChatGPT is basically gathering the users' data by way of putting in even commercials, encouraging people to bring up onto their platform. So frankly, I think everybody wants India to use the infrastructure, and I think in turn they want to train their models in a systematic manner. In my viewpoint, I think if Microsoft, Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta kind of companies, if they are at the bottom of the pyramid for providing the infrastructure, including for computing space as well, India is at the probably top of the pyramid, in which I think they are basically producing different applications using this infrastructure. So today, I think for various industry and their use, India becomes, I think, a formidable kind of a proposition for most of the countries in the world Same situation which at one point of time in 90s was there for the IT companies, for people to I think rush for digital or the software based solution. Today now those same companies I think coming to Indian IT companies for AI based solutions. So in fact in my
Absolutely.
viewpoint, I think this particular 5-10 year period is going to be super application management business. I think for India, various manufacturing
Okay.
and applications I think which will come out of AI will be taking place in India. That is what my take is.
Wonderful. One last question before I conclude this wonderful conversation is that the retail inflows have somehow been drying up over the past about 3-4 months. We're seeing some of the country's biggest, portals such as Zerodha, Grow, Upstocks. We've seen a number of, we've seen a massive drying up of SIP inflows. What could be the reason, and what would your advice to retail investors be at a time when we are seeing so much turmoil across the globe and definitely on the market, sir?
Definitely, I think it has punctured. The momentum has punctured. And that's the reason for which I think the retail which used to come for momentum trading, I think is not coming into the market. And when they do not get into the market, and I think at the same time market goes down, obviously I think their ability to pump in more money into the market I think comes down. It is only the momentum when they I think able to pump more money. So in my viewpoint, I think they are all seasonal investors, stroke traders, and that's where probably I think you are seeing this vacuum which is happening currently. As I see
Okay.
it, I think probably for Indian economy, Indian corporates and earnings, I think that this is the best time which we are entering into. Possibly, I think we are likely to see next 4 to 6 quarters of outstanding earnings growth coming up from most of the companies. Those companies which are large in size and have capability to deliver, they are the ones I think who are going to be the biggest beneficiaries. So this team is working in a direction of big is getting bigger for sure, and that's where I think some of the good opportunities are available. Unfortunately, I think people are running short on cash because of the losses they incur into the IPO related stuff. Otherwise, I think this is a good time for investors to buy into some good quality names.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Choksey, for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you once again when the budget is declared. See you soon, sir.